Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you're there. If I take the wings of morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. When I read this beautiful psalm, reminding us of God's perpetual presence, a memory from many years comes to my mind. My daughter Melissa was laughing with a real guffaw, as only a 4-year-old super pleased with herself can do. She was responding to my asking her to please hurry up so we can get ready for bed and so that we could say her nightly prayers. Come on, honey, we've got to say prayers so that God can go on down the street and hear the prayers of the kids down there. You know, it's time for them too. And that's when the joyful laughter burst out of her. Oh, Mommy, you're so silly. You know, God is everywhere. A 4-year-old, and she had it. She had the truth that we as adults so often have to be reminded of. And we know we slip, forgetting that when we invite God to be with us or praying to be present with someone else, we're really inviting our own presence and our own awareness to refocus and open to God's presence. God hasn't gone away from us. Our awareness and our focus is what has shifted away from God. And we know we slip, forgetting that everywhere we stand is sacred ground, that the Spirit of God is within every living soul, and every bit of creation is embedded with the sacredness of the Creator's touch. We speak of the Big Bang Theory, which theorizes that all universal matter is from the same source. We are stardust, we are golden, and we've got to get ourselves back to that garden. We know we slip. We think of God, the Creator, as only the God of Genesis. John Muir, known as the father of the national parks, and as you know, Katie, my wife, worked for the National Park Service for a long time, so John Muir is a real hero. John Muir reminds us that creation is not just in the past, but ongoing. He said, "People talk about creation as a remote fact of history, as if it were something that was attended to a long time ago and finished at that time. But creation was not an act, it's a process, and it's going on today as much as it ever was. And nature is not in a hurry." Yes, in his own style, John Muir reminds us that Creator God is still present and active in our world, God with us. We know that we slip, forgetting that our sacredness, when we don't always treat our neighbors, or even more so our adversaries, as our God-embedded sisters and brothers. A reminder I use for myself when I know I'm slipping, when I don't feel good about the way I might treat someone as less than welcoming, is remembering the Hindu greeting, Namaste. The God in me recognizes and greets the God in you. Yes, this is the truth of everyone. Our spouse, our child, our best friend, the neighbor we know, and the one we don't know. It's true of the people we like and those we don't like. Even the politicians we strongly disagree with among their followers. God is in each of us. We will never look into the eyes of someone that God does not love. This is what we mean when we say we are each a child of God, each a sister or brother to one another. Yes, we each have some inner work to do as we learn to recognize God in all and to love each other. So, we don't get to choose who is our sister or brother. It's everybody. If God's with us, ever present, why aren't we aware of it all the time? It's very human to miss this hidden truth, especially when we live so much through emotions, through feelings. This condition is no more evident than when we feel lonely, especially during times of pain, physical, mental, emotional, during our challenging times of suffering and grief. Gospel writers Mark and Matthew tell us that even Jesus, as a human, cried out in agony, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And those words are a direct quotation from David's plea for deliverance from suffering and hostility in Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me, from the words of my groaning? How human we all are, that we identify with emotions described thousands of years ago as if they were written by someone today. Surely we have all felt that plea arise from those most vulnerable places within during the most trying times of our lives, as we beg for God's presence because we slip when we don't feel it. We beg for God's presence, for God to deliver us from grief, pain, loneliness, illness, fear. And the good news is that although we may feel abandoned at times, and we may feel that dreaded aloneness, feelings are not facts. And we can turn our attention to the promise of God with us to guide us through those valleys of dismay and even the valley of the shadow of death. It's a wise teaching that says we nurture that to which we give our attention. If we focus on the negative, negativity will be the natural path we follow, along with the dwelling in the pain and the destruction that that path brings. If we focus on the positive, positivity will naturally be with us, whatever our circumstances, allowing us to get through each experience, alternating from the dark valleys to the bright hilltops of life, more often recognizing the blessing of God with us. And that's not to say that with a positive viewpoint, we don't experience sadness and pain. But we will recognize those feelings for what they are. Years ago, I served as a hospital chaplain in Summit, New Jersey. And I was especially close to one of my patients. He was an older gentleman who had cancer, and he was dying. He asked me to stay with him in the recovery room after surgery one day. After I prayed with him and read the 23rd Psalm, he spoke of how God was there with us and how much God loved us. I responded that I was impressed that his strong faith came through no matter how much pain he was in. He looked at me with such surprise, and he said, "Oh, pain is just pain, but faith is faith." Those words struck home, and I was certainly ministered to that day. We are creatures called to expand, to stretch, to grow towards truth, towards living our faith more truly. And so much of that growth comes when we are reminded and are able to recognize what we already know. With God as close to us as each beat of the heart, as close to us as each inhalation of breath, let us be reminded and stretched with that truth. Let us be open to the wisdom of a 4-year-old and transform our perspective, always recognizing the most liberating of truths. Let us remind ourselves with joy, oh friends, we know God is everywhere.